Καλημέρα σας. Το πάνελ αυτό θα είναι στα αγγλικά, γιατί έχουμε τον προσκεκλημένο μας, τον κύριο Τόμ, που ακούσατε πριν από λίγο. Θα ήθελα να προσκαλέσω όλα τα μέλη του πάνελ επάνω και σιγά-σιγά να αρχίσουμε την κουβέντα. Θα είναι μαζί μας ο κύριος Κανελλόπουλος, τον ακούσατε πριν από λίγο στην παρουσίαση, ο πρόεδρος του Συλλόγου Ιδιοκτητών, Ενοικιαζομένων, Επιπλωμάτων, Διαμερισμάτων, ο κύριος Παραδιάς, που επίσης τον ακούσατε πριν, που είναι ο πρόεδρος της Ομοσπονδίας Ιδιοκτητών Ακινήτων, η κυρία Αγνή Χρηστίδου, η οποία είναι Διευθύντρια του Ξενοδοχειακού Επιμελητηρίου, ο Αλέξης ο Γαληνός, που είναι ο CEO της ΕΑΤΑ, που είναι η Εταιρεία Προώθησης της Αθήνας του Δήμου Αθηναίων, και ο κύριος Βαγγέλης Κτενιάδης, που είναι... και Tom, of course. Που είναι CEO της V2 Development, που είναι ιδιωτική εταιρεία και η οποία ασχολείται με τις κατασκευές ακινήτων, με Golden Visa, και θα δούμε και περισσότερο το τι κάνει ο καθένας. Θα ήθελα να παρακαλέσω μικρόφωνα για το πάνελ. Με ακούτε? Okay, now we will turn to English. I hope you all hear me. Today's panel discussion is about the course of sharing economy, the opportunities and challenges. And we have our esteemed guests here to give us their insight regarding the market from a different perspective, each one of them, because some of them are from the part of the hotelier, some of them are from the part of the destination, which is very important to see how the destination is benefiting from this new disruptive innovation. We have private companies, we have associations with us, and we also have the data mining, Tom Caton, who has the figures and the numbers of this new market. So before we continue, I would really like to know who is in the audience with us. So please show of hands if you're a hotelier. Okay, good. No hoteliers? Just very few? Yeah, okay. If you are a property management company, okay. And if you're just an owner that you handle your apartment, great, the majority. Good to know, because we need to adjust the discussion towards that. So, Tom, that was great figures that you showed us. You mentioned about professionalization of this market, which I think is the key. And from the audience here today, I assume that there are certain points that you mentioned that maybe are not very well aware, because they are aware to the hoteliers. For example, RevPAR, what it's all about. So maybe we can start explaining a little bit these terms, because in order to reach the personalization, you need to know all the terms that exist there and that can bring your apartment and your property that you manage to a better situation later on. So how RevPAR is analyzed, what does this mean to the price per available room? Also, if you can give us some indications how you can manage the prices throughout the year. For example, if there is an event in the city, what you can do about it. If you know that there is an event, if there is a marathon race, for example, that you know that you're going to have bookings in the city center. So give us a few details about that to educate mostly our audience.
Yeah, sure. So when you first start thinking about having a short-term rental, as I did, the first thing you think of is, I want to be booked every night. I don't want to waste my time. And when I first had my listing in London, was pursuing occupancy. was stupid. I was doing it all wrong, and I know this now. Because the most important thing is your revenue per available rental, or if you have one property, your revenue. The revenue was the most important thing. And I was foolishly thinking occupancy would get me the best revenue. So the three main metrics that hoteliers have always looked at is occupancy, ADR, so average daily rate, and RevPAR, revenue per available room, or in our case, rental. So revenue per available rental means per night, how much are you earning on average, accounting for occupancy. So the calculation is occupancy times ADR equals RevPAR. But never mind these statistics. The most important thing to think of is I want to make as much money as possible. So I have to be a gambler. When I see that there's a big event coming up and my property is the only one that's like it, it's the only three-bed property that's nice, with a balcony, maybe with a bathtub, I have to feel confident about holding my price up. Don't get scared and think, oh, it's getting late now, I'll do it for 50 euros a night because 50 euros is better than anything. You have to be prepared to not get booked and be strong in your pricing. And that's why knowing what happens in advance, knowing the lead booking times, that in 7 days to go, if you're the only property that's like your property, you can raise your price. You don't have to sink it. You just have to have the confidence to think, my property is a good property. People will want it. I'm the best one of all my competitors. They've all been booked, and have the confidence to raise your pricing, not just lower it.
Great. Giorgos Canellopoulos, apart from being president of the association, you also have certain properties that you handle yourself, as far as I know, and there are quite few.
Yes, that's correct. I'm running a property management company with around 150, 60 properties around Greece, mainly in Athens, but in the islands as well. And
great. Can you give us some insight regarding which properties are moving better than the others? Which I assume you have one-bedroom properties,
yes.
two-bedroom, three-bedroom. Which are the ones that they are top sellers among your properties?
Top sellers, I think, they are the bigger properties. I would say more than 3 bedrooms apartments. Yeah.
Can you explain why?
Yes. The competition is less in bigger properties. For 1 or 2 bedroom apartments, there is higher competition with the hotels, mainly. So there are, obviously, there are less bigger 3 or 4 or 5 bedroom properties than the 1 and 2. So competition is less. There is a high demand as well. We have people coming in Athens who have big families that they're trying to find the bigger one to stay all together. Many we have guests of 10, 12, 15 people coming all together.
Yes.
And we notice that we have higher occupancies in this kind of properties.
Okay, so top selling are the ones that they are big. So if someone wants to invest, most probably the 1-bedroom apartment would not be a good idea because the supply is increasing. So if you want to stand up from the competition, most probably you need to go to the more room apartments. So Agni Χρηστίδου from the Chamber of Hotels, how do you feel that this economy, this market, the short rental, and I don't want to call it sharing economy because I don't think it's sharing anymore. It's a business. It's a huge business. So do you feel that this is competitive to the hotels, and how the hoteliers see today, because I know that it was much different when we were back a few years ago, but how do they see this economy evolving, and how is there a parallel movement towards the two markets, or are they actually going to meet?
I will start with something I heard from a president of the associations going back to the past. I think the past will give us a clear picture because things are the same in an alternative model. 30 or 40 years ago, one of the major problems of the hotel industry was the great number of illegal rooms and apartments to let in Greece and in all Mediterranean countries. And at that time, there was a lot of demand, and the supply was not so big as it is today. And there were people that were saying that we are the residents, we are renting our room, we are renting a house, and we are supplementing our income in order to stay on the islands and things like that. So all this big pressure from the hoteliers, it ended in the legalization of all these rooms and apartments to let, and now they are licensed. They are another type of accommodation, which is well accepted. But today we have two huge differences with the past. The supply at that time was limited, because you couldn't expand. Now you can expand because every room, every apartment can jump into the short rental economy. Then they couldn't reach the clientele because there was the online platforms. They had to fish on the ports. We would see that they were there, billboards saying rooms to rent, and this was a criminal offense at that time. So now with the online platforms, this is without boundaries. So for us, it is really a true competitor. It is a true competitor. It has to have a level playing field so as to have a balance between the ones that they are professionals and the private owners, because for us, home sharing, the private owner who welcomes the guests and who is working on a peer-to-peer basis is not a competitor. This is a complementary status, which is the small part of it. But for us, the competitor is the professional. And since it is a competitor, then it has to have rules. We have to have a level playing field so everyone can survive in this big tourism industry that is booming in our country.
Yes, if we see the figures, I think we have now something like 10,000 hotels in Greece. And we used to have something like, we don't know the number, nobody I think ever knew the number of the rooms to rent, that they were about 40,000 or 50.
They are legal about close to 30,000.
30,000, yes. So from the numbers that we heard today, the short-term rentals, they are 12,000, they are 72,000 short-term rental. Of course, we're talking about rooms and not hotels themselves, so I think we need to compare potatoes with potatoes, rooms with rooms. But in general, we have in Athens increased the capacity by 12,000 more rooms. This, I think everybody would agree that this has has increased the number of arrivals in Athens, because we're talking about Athens, today's conference about Athens, and the number of arrivals of tourists in Athens has increased quite a lot. Alexis, Galinos, do you think that this market has helped the city receive more tourists? Is it due to this phenomenon, or do you think that these tourists would have come anyway?
It has helped the destination in two ways. One is let's say, an overarching way, which is that it was showed in the presentation, there's an increased demand for these type of accommodation and services. So in that sense, there's a segment of demand that is looking for Airbnb type of services. So if Athens didn't have that, then that would be a problem for Athens as a destination. So in that sense, it helps. Also, because Athens has been witnessing a big spike in its demand over the past 5 years now, and the hotel industry is not capable of expanding as rapidly as demand has been growing. The sharing platforms have been able to accommodate this surge in demand. So in that sense, it has been very helpful. It has also been helpful for Athens as we see that as different neighborhoods are becoming, new destinations, there is a new ecosystem of local entrepreneurs that are growing to cater to this type of demand that has to do with their services and their goods. So overall, there is a positive impact. However, there are also concerns. The Chamber raised a concern. There are more concerns than that. There's the zoning issues. There's safety and security issues that we have to keep in our minds. The main competitive advantage of a destination is its identity, its brand. And if we don't sort of keep in our heads the big picture, and we don't safeguard a destination from becoming, and I'm exaggerating here just to make a point, from becoming a huge accommodation venue, that would be a threat to any destination. So these are the concerns that one has to keep in mind when counterbalancing the positive impacts of the sharing economy.
Mr. Kteniadis, from your part, you have, as a developing company, you have seen that the market has started moving again. There is also the golden visa issue that has brought quite a lot of visitors outside the EU, that they are seeking a visa with the purchase of a property in Greece. Can you give us some idea of how the golden visa, for example, has helped in this market? And what we would like maybe to hear is that how the people that they are buying properties for the golden visa are using their apartments. Who is handling their apartments?
Well, regarding, I will tell you a little bit that I disagree with the form of golden visa because it has a negative connotation for the third country citizens that are interested into getting an investor's permanent residency in Greece. This is what also the card that they are getting when they get it from the immigration offices. So actually, the program is an investor's permanent residency permit. It's been called golden visa, but unfortunately, as I said, it has a negative connotation. We have requested from the enterprise in Greece and the government to see if they can provide a different name for the program because it's a permanent residency and it has nothing to do with a visa. And we are in the process of that. That's the one part. Regardless of the bad naming, though, and the branding, we have to say something that the figures that we received 2-3 weeks ago, and the Greek permanent residency program is the #1 program all over the world. It is the first year ever in history since there have been created permanent residency programs that a program of a country surpasses the American one, the EB-5. The EB-5 is a well-known program all over the world and has a vast interest of investors. And our country managed for 2018 to be the #1 country all over the world for the permanent residency that we issued to foreign investors. And this is really a tremendous achievement for a program that started in 2013 and just in 5 years managed to be in the top of the world. These are some facts. Now, as far as the rest of your questions of how this interest of the foreign residents and the impact that they have to us as a development company, it is huge. Right now, 80 to 85% of clientele comes from foreign countries. Fortunately or unfortunately, fortunately from the one hand, because we have a huge interest from all over the world for investments in Greece, for purchasing properties in Greece. But from the other hand, it's unfortunate due to the fact that the Greek market has not been starting to moving yet in the level that we all of us want. So I think regarding the permanent residency program is something that we all need to cherish it, we need to protect it. Unfortunately, recently, there's been a lot of negative news regarding this. There's been a lot of speculations, a lot of changes, and we are looking forward with the support of everybody and the government and the enterprise in Greece and everybody who's involved into this program to keep it up in the top of the world.
So there is an opportunity there for handling all these properties that they are bought due to the golden visa. And I will continue saying that because I'm used to that. It's easier. So there is an opportunity there for property managers to actually handle these properties for the people that they buy these properties.
Well, definitely there is. For us, as a development company, which means development, means that we're making urban planning, we're doing construction, we're doing trading, we're doing management of properties. We are managing all the properties of our foreign clients, for sure. We need to give them the ability to, and we need to do that since they already established trust with them. So we have created in our company a department for short and long-term rental, and it's the department that have been handling this. So definitely there is a need in the market for the individuals who've been buying on their own, for companies that they have a very broad and spectrum of in the real estate, and having the ability to accommodate and understand the needs of the foreign investors in order to trust them into giving them their properties to manage them. So we are doing that, but we are not the only ones, and there's, as long as the market will become more clear and clear for the foreigners to be purchasing properties in Greece, there will definitely need to be a stronger interest for good companies to manage their properties.
Mr. Paradias, can this activity be considered as a survival tool for the owners, property owners, that they are burdened with the NFIA tax and the big loans and all these burdens that, I mean, I think everybody has, I mean, the majority of the Greek people, they do own a property, so it was very sad and all of these taxes that they came due to the crisis. So is this activity, it's a survival tool? Do you think, your association, do you find it as a survival tool? And to what extent?
Greece is somehow a worldwide champion in property taxation during the years of the crisis. Unbelievable pressure upon property owners, especially those whose taxable value property exceeds the threshold of the 250,000 euros, which coincides with the visa threshold this year also. So those property owners who own property over this threshold, they pay a multiple amount of taxation. If you compare this with the ones who own smaller properties under this 250,000 euros. And for them, there's no doubt that this is a survival tool. This is why, firstly, we see that most properties that have been sold to foreign investors who renovate these buildings in Athens, and they push them towards the direction of the Airbnb short-term rentals. They were sold by people who were pressed from this multiple taxation, the MFIA taxation. For smaller investors, for those who buy just one apartment, this taxation is not really a problem, but it is a problem for all the others who are above this margin. Also, a number of the people involved in this activity are also pressed by bank loans. And we all know what is happening in this country considering this area. So one of the reasons why lots of people are turning to this activity is, of course, what you just mentioned.
we know that lately there is a shortage of apartments in the greater area of Athens and in certain neighborhoods. And there is also an increase in the rentals. What is your association's position towards that?
There is an old saying in Greek that whenever somebody hears about a lot of cherries, and they go there with a big basket to pick up those lots of cherries. But sometimes the cherries there are not enough to fill a big basket. So a lot of people has an enthusiasm about this. But as I mentioned in my greeting in the beginning of the meeting, not everybody can survive in this. Only the brave ones, only the good ones, only those who want to do it with both hands will survive. So, since we are living in a country in which during the last 10 years there wasn't practically any building activity for buildings who would go to tenants, and since the only renovation activity which is now going on in this country is on the destination of the Airbnb rentals and the short-haul rentals, we will see lots of these premises, many of which were not in the market before, many of which they were in a very bad condition before. They were not inhabited, some of them for years, older apartments in very central areas, to be offered to regular tenants. This will happen very soon, I believe. This will happen when many taxpayers will receive the bill of this year, income tax paper, or next year also. When they will see all the bills they had to pay, when they see that it was them who would have to pay the electricity bill, the utilities bill, the water bill, where in a normal situation a tenant would pay all those bills, they will find out that it would be much more profitable for them to give their apartments into normal rentals rather than try to survive in such a competitive market as the market we're talking about here.
Agni, regarding the fair competition with the hotels, what the Chamber of Hotels suggests as a regulation that needs to be imposed to this market?
Well, it is not only us, it is all the hotel associations all over Europe and also in the United States, because it's a painstaking issue. So we started first with the registration. This has been accomplished, but now we have to check whether all of them are registered and who is doing the control, because nobody really knows if they are all in the register of the Independent Authority of Public Revenue.
Yes, the figures from October 2018, we only have 15,000 properties registered. I don't know what's the number now from the Independent Authority of Public Revenue. I don't know if anybody has this figure now.
They didn't publish the data, so we don't really know. So the second thing is that we need thresholds. Why do we need thresholds? Thresholds in time, thresholds in space. We need them because we have to have a clear distinction between the private owner, between the non-professional, the occasional operation, and the professional one. One thing is the social implications, that they are really very important. We do receive a lot of letters from students, teachers, from Crete, for example, that they cannot find housing, and they address themselves to the hotels, so it's really crazy. I mean, the local residents, they are going to the hotels, and the tourists, they are going to the apartments, so there has to be a balance in that, because also the rentals, they have gone sky high in some regions, and one has to take attention to that. Then there's another thing, there is a lot of taxation to the hotels. You know, they have a lot of tax burdens, local taxes, accommodation taxes. So the distinction again between the private owner and the professional, then the professional has to be taxed in a similar way so as to have a level playing field. Then there is another interesting thing, which is the protection of the consumer. You know that the European Union has very detailed legislation concerning the protection of the consumer. Now here there has to be a certain limit of protection for the consumer, for the hygiene, for the safety, for the security. This is really very important. And the last thing is the liability. I mean, there has to be a certain liability by the online platforms, by the host, to know what the neighbor is doing. You need the consent of the neighborhood. You need to have ways to file complaints and things like that. This is very important. So for us, we are willing to coexist with that short rental industry, but we want it to operate in a very responsible, socially responsible way.
Yeah, so Giorgos Canellopoulos, regarding these regulations, which actually they sound quite fair. I mean, to have an insurance for the rentals, which I don't know how many of our audience here, they do have an insurance, which is quite cheap, I would say. It's not very expensive to have insure your apartment for any damages, also for
third-party liability.
Yes.
Yeah, third-party liability insurance.
Yes, also the hygiene matters, of course. So what is your association position on all these regulations that Mrs. Χρηστίδου just
First
mentioned?
of all, I would like to say that the recent legislation is moving to the right direction. We are in favor of regulations, but against restrictions and exclusions. Of course, we would also consider something like a certification from a national organization, tourism office. And we need to think about everything has to do about the security, the fire protection, and third-party liability insurance, of course. My company, we offer to every, in every property, a third-party liability insurance, which is not very expensive as well, as you said.
Yeah, so both the associations and the... Mr. Paradias, would you like to say your association regarding this?
When we were advised by the Ministry of Tourism a couple of years ago about which conditions should apply on this type of rentals and these dwellings, we actually said that the only condition that we will insist on would be insurance. Insurance is vital for the property owner. Because the manager, if he is not the property owner, and if there's a great damage in the house, well, it's the property owner who has to pay out of his own pocket. So we insisted on this. And this gives you a chance to say that in our federation, we do have a very good insurance program for our members, at the best offer in the market, at the best price. Anybody can visit our website and find out about it.
Αλέξη Γαληνός, as the company that promotes Athens, and I would assume that you also receive complaints from tourists or citizens. Have you heard any complaints regarding the short-term rental market, and what are the consequences to the Greek capital?
Yeah, so there's, well, the chamber mentioned a number of them, but as the sharing economy is growing in terms of the accommodation sector, you know, and different neighborhoods are growing as destinations, there is a increasing strain on that neighborhood, a strain that, you know, each municipality has to cater to, but in order to cater to, usually you need your extra resources. That, you know, this system of growth has not been, there's no plan on how municipality can be supported in order to be able to accommodate to this extra strain. So that is a problem. Of course, there's also the problem that we hear from Athenians who are starting to self-organize in different neighborhoods, complaining about how it is becoming, in some neighborhoods, increasingly difficult to be able to find a place to rent and to live. And, you know, many Athenians are complaining that we have to leave our neighborhoods and move to other neighborhoods. So that's an issue that relates to my initial statement that there has to be some zoning issues, and we have to be very careful of how we protect the identity, the true identity of the destination.
Yeah, and we know that the people that, the travelers that they prefer to stay in short-term rentals, they also have a greater experience of the local customs, of the local culture, because they need to go out to shop from the local groceries. They need to, they see the town from maybe a different perspective, maybe, rather than the ones who stay in a hotel, and they would eat at least once in a hotel. And if we're talking about 2 or 3 nights stay in the Greek capital, then maybe the amount of money that actually goes to the local neighborhood and to the city is more from this sharing economy rather than maybe from the hoteliers. Do you see that coming, or maybe Tom has any data on that, or it's too early for that?
I have some anecdotal data. Many of our customers are hoteliers. One of the things they do with our data is they see where is rising as a neighborhood. So a classic example from some time ago is Williamsburg in New York became very popular. It was kind of the center of the hipster scene. There were only 2 hotels there, but Airbnbs flew up because people didn't want to stay in Manhattan. They wanted to stay in Williamsburg. And we see this over and over again, that Airbnb can be the guidance as to where there is going to be demand in the future. But if there were just hotels, you'd never know that people were really searching to stay in that neighborhood because the hotels weren't there to indicate supply and demand. So it can do a really nice job of really giving the visitor exactly what they want, not almost what they want. And part of that experiencing that neighborhood is spending in the local coffee shops, in the local restaurants. So it really does make a difference to the traveler's experience.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have any questions from the audience that you would like to raise? The gentleman from the audience, he's asking from your experience, from the problems that they were raised in this discussion today, if you see that these problems are the same everywhere around the globe, and that the people that facing in the areas are the same. I mean, we have discussed here about how to regulate, if it's competitive to hotels, what brings back to the economy, and all these issues, how each country or city is experiencing that.
Yeah, over and over again, you hear this, particularly in popular destinations. Because when you go out to unpopular cities, they're grateful for any visitors that come in so many ways. When you think about Cleveland, Ohio in America, no one's ever been on holiday there. But there are reasons they might want to stay. Maybe they have family, there's a hospital there, maybe a business trip. So not really a debate there. But any real city that's a destination, it happens over and over again. And I think in Athens, the debate is less tough than other cities. So in Barcelona, there's been riots over the amount of, have real problems with over-tourism in a way that I think maybe not so much in Greece by comparison. but yet it's the same problems over and over again. And the answer, I think, is always the same, is make a regulatory framework around it. The world has changed. And I definitely say to everyone here who has a short-term rental, as soon as there's a regulator, jump on it, because it's a business opportunity. So often we see that there's a period where it's kind of okay, some regulations kind of come in, and then the regulations become clearer. And if you don't have a license and you're not regulated, you can't get one anymore. So when those registrations get, grab them, because maybe next year there won't be any more available. But yeah, it's a very familiar problem.
Σας ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Μία ερώτηση ακόμα και κλείνουμε. Παρακαλώ. Okay, difficult question. So the gentleman asks if you're going to bring any KPIs for this market, so in order to be able to compare eggs with eggs and apples with apples. And another question, which I don't know who is going to answer that. Okay, you will answer that. You will answer that in Greek, most probably. If there are going to be any people or companies or organizations that are going to do good estimations regarding the prices of the properties, the selling prices, so that people can go and invest in a real market, not in a market that actually is,
As far as the property realtors, the evaluators is concerned, in other countries, there are professional, there are people who've been studying this. They're coming into your house and they're checking the quality of the materials. They've been known, they're like civil engineers or whatever, and they have a certain amount of experience in order to be able to identify what kind of materials you have put in your house, apart from the location of the property. As far as the location of the property, the key on each business, it is, you always want to buy at 6 o'clock. The economy is a circle. The economy always makes circles. You always want to buy at 6 o'clock, which is the lowest point, okay? And you want to sell at 12. Well, if we know, all of us knew after 10 years which areas and which properties they will have a certain ROI, a return of investment, then all will have been figure out and solve our life professional aspirations. So what I'm trying to say is that the key on each business is that we've seen a certain trend downtown recently, for example, and that's something that has to do, and it's definitely related with Airbnb. There has been an increase on the properties, having also in mind that the properties have reached a bottom. This is the bottom, especially in July of 2015. That was the lowest, that was 6 o'clock. And the highest was in December 2008, maybe in 2009, beginning of 2009. That was the highest that the properties prices were. So since July 2015, we've seen an increase of around 6 to 8%, depends on, in average. Okay, some downtown more than other areas, 6 to 8% in average, and we think that over the next 2 to 3 years, this increase on the properties prices will be much higher. Excluding tax, when your property is being increased on the value that had before. Now, the taxes that being added, it's something that each time, we cannot control this. All right, we can control it with our vote, though.
For how much you could earn, I haven't really done enough advertising of AirDNA.co, but we have a tool. You type in any address in the world, and then we'll look at all the comparables and tell you how much that place would earn as a short-term rentals. We call it the rentalizer. So yeah, I think you get your first 5 searches for free or something, and then you must subscribe. So maybe that will help you find out how much you could earn.
Mr. Paradias would like to add to that?
Well, if you consider the irregularity of the Greek real estate market, I think this would be a very good question that could be answered only by the Oracle of Delphi.
Something that I want to add on the question that you mentioned, and you know, since V2 Development is the grand sponsor of this event, and you know, in ancient Greece, sponsors were sacred or whatever. So I would like to take this opportunity that also real estate agents can be very valuable on assessing and evaluating properties. We need to have something in mind, and I'm telling you this because apart from V2 Development, which is a developing, I said we do urban planning, construction, trading, and management of properties. I'm also the master franchisee of Fompol. Fompol is the second biggest company in Germany and one of the biggest in Europe as real estate agents. We make the signed agreement very recently. We're going to have our headquarters in Amalias 2, right in the corner of Othonos and Amalias. It could be be making very soon. And in Europe, in most countries, the real estate agents only getting paid by the buyer. Okay, it's higher, like 4 to 5% or 6%, depends on each country. But in 90% of these countries, the buyer is the one who pays for the deal, and the seller does not. But in Greece, we have this, our own rule here, which is usually the 2% is from the buyer and 2% from the seller. That means also that the real estate agent is working for both parties and is trying to compromise a situation on the negotiation. That's very important in making a deal. And I think the way we are doing the real estate agents working, not so much about the quality of their performance at times, but the fact that they are getting paid both from the buyer and from the seller. There also is a good way in order for them for you to receive a fair evaluation on your property.
Okay, thank you so much.